excited. I think this is what this got to be the 10th, 11th year, 12th, 13th year, something like that. Actually, Cody Sanders is here who's going to present to you later, and Cody remembers sitting through this presentation. Did it help?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah? You went out and bought a new suit?
Yeah, I did. I still have it.
You buy a good one, it will last a long time. The rest of you are thinking, that how many years ago is that? And you still own the thing, but that's one of the takeaways today. If you invest in something good, it can last a long time.
So I have to tell you, my daughter graduated from SUU with her hotel hospitality management,
Right.
same as your daughter. We bought her a suit 10 years ago. We spent a fortune on it, like $450 for a woman's suit, same as a man's suit. She just wore it this week when she went to their corporate offices in Orlando. She works for Marriott to do a presentation. She used the same suit. So if you buy something, it can be timeless. So that's the message, is invest in how you look. I always love the Bryce Carter story. Bryce Carter, one of our alums who's now practicing as a pediatrician up north, came to us after this presentation with his suit on. He had worn it on his LDS mission. The hem was ragged. The back side of it was as thin could be, and he was pretty cheap. And after Greg chatted with him, I think, he went out and bought a new suit, thank goodness. So we're excited to have Greg here to present to you. He's happy to answer questions. He is probably our most GQ staff or faculty member on campus. And so without further ado, we'll let him present.
Thanks very much, Rita. Bryce is the Cedar boy. He was my daughter's first date at a formal dance when she was like 16 years old. And so yeah, fun stuff. Yeah, I'm glad that Cody's here to kind of. How many years ago were you in this?
4 years ago.
Just 4 years ago.
Well, I guess it would have been 5. Yeah, 2014.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, see, that's one of the great things, especially for men. This stuff does not change much from year to year. Other fashions do; they change annually. We all know that, right? But not when it comes to interview dress. It really doesn't. It's fairly timeless. That's the good news. So if you do drop $450 or whatever, which you don't need to do, we're going to talk about that, right? You really don't need to spend a whole lot of money to do this. But if you buy something that's kind of timeless looking, you got to be able to have it for a long time. Let me kick this off by just sharing a quick little story that's kind of interesting. I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up there originally, and so when I came to school at SU very long time ago, SUSC back in the day, we had a class over in the School of Business, and that's where I teach. I teach management over in the School of Business, and this topic became interesting to me about 15 years ago. I had a club it was a professional development club, and we started doing some training with the people in that club on this kind of a topic. And I remembered that we had a 1 credit hour class. It was our capstone course experience in the School of Business that included things like dressing for interviews and for work in general in the business world. It covered interview skills. We did lots of practicing with interviews and resume development. All those kinds of polishing things that sometimes we overlook, unfortunately, that are really essential. And so we did those kinds of things. I remember this was our textbook, and that's where that term comes from. This term, Dress for Success, it comes from this book by John Malloy. He also wrote one for women. It was basically called Dress for Success for Women, which was a follow-up to this very, very popular book, and it kind of launched this whole idea that, hey, maybe there's something to this, and is there some research to back this up? And the answer is there is a lot of research to back this whole thing up. Let me give you a quick example how the book opens. It's kind of interesting. At that time, when John was writing this book, probably around 1980, I think is when the first edition came out. They decided that they were going to try some theories that they had about different color raincoats that people would wear, longer raincoats that they would wear, this outerwear that they would wear in big metropolitan areas where weather is an issue. You never see someone in LA running around in a raincoat, but in Manhattan, you bet. Lots of people are into outerwear, even wealthy people who have their own personal drivers. You're still going to be on the weather a bit in Manhattan. So you do things like gloves and scarves and hats and coats and whatnot, right? They don't really do that too much in Utah, but they do there. And so at that time, kind of a tan-colored raincoat was kind of the color for people who were of a certain social class. Now you're thinking, well, who says that? Who says the color has to be, tan, not black, not navy blue? Well, the answer is, I don't know. It just develops that way. Why do fashions develop the way they do? It's just a social thing, and some things become in, and some things are out, and that's the way of the world, right? So they decided to test this theory about tan raincoats, and here's what they did. They gave an individual, they dressed him up, and put him in different colored raincoats. And they gave him a parcel, and he would walk in, they'd send him into large companies, and his story was this: hi, I'm so-and-so with such and such courier service. I've got a package here for the CEO, and I need to deliver it to him or her personally, and I was told that I have to do that, and I can't leave it here. I have to give it to them in person. Okay? So he went and told that story hundreds and hundreds of times throughout New York City. Walked to all these places, right? And the only difference was, in some of the encounters, he had on the tan raincoat. The raincoat that was seen as kind of upper crust, upper class. In many of the other settings, he had like a black or a navy blue raincoat, which interestingly is very in vogue today in those kinds of communities, but not so much back in the 70s and 80s. And so the reality was that time and time again, when he had on the tan raincoat, the receptionist would say, okay, let me go get that person for you right away. Time and time again. In other words, they'd let him do what he wanted to do. When he had the wrong, quote-unquote, wrong colored raincoat, nothing doing, Buster. You're not getting past me, and that's that. You can give me the package and I'll give it to him, but you are not seeing our CEO, and that's final. And again, and the statistics were quite significant. And so it's like, so what is all of that? So when you hear things about a red tie is a power tie, or it's a power color, a blue suit connotes kind of friendliness, a gray suit more power, there is research to back up those kinds of things. So that's just a small sample of a bigger issue, and the bigger issue is this. When you're dressed in a certain way, you do communicate. It's about communication, really, is what it is. It's not about clothing or a wool suit. It's really about communication. And so you walking into these interviews that you will do, whether you're going to PT school, or med school, dental school, veterinary school, I know where y'all are going. Like we said, we've been doing this for a long time, right? When you go into these interviews, the whole idea is when you walk into that setting, you want people to instantly know a couple of things. Number one, I get it. I understand the kind of environment I'm in. I understand I'm not taking my dog for a walk in the park on Saturday. That's a different outfit. I understand I'm not going to the gym or just coming home from the gym. I understand I'm not actually in college anymore with a ball cap on and some casual clothing. I understand that I'm in a professional environment. Number two, I respect this environment. I respect you guys. I respect this environment, right? You want them to quickly see that and then move on with the interview and get to know you, right? You don't want what you're wearing to be an impediment for them to go, what is this? You don't want to be remembered that way. You want to be unremembered in a way. You just kind of want to blend in a way with everybody else. You want them to go, oh, she looks great. And they go, so who are you? And then move on to the next thing. Getting to know you, looking at your resume, things of that nature. Also, one of the interesting things about this, and I'm not sure if I'm actually doing an interview seminar for these guys or not. I haven't been told that. I often do, I typically do, but we haven't set a date on that. Maybe not. Is this your last day? This is the last day of this? Okay. I guess the answer is no to that. So we won't be doing that.
We switched it up. We're going to do
Gotcha.
interviews later in the summer.
Gotcha.
We decided not to overwhelm them with everything.
With everything all at once, yeah. Well, one thing we'll cover in that seminar too is a lot of the research on making first impressions shows that it happens super, super fast, which is good news and bad news, right? If you walk in with something that's wrong or make some big mistake or some social faux pas or whatever, They might have a tough time getting unwrapped around the axle about something you just did or failed to do or whatever it is. The good news is, if you take that 7 seconds, and much of the research shows, first impressions made, I'm going to assess this person in about 7 seconds and make a judgment call. The good news about that is if you make a good first impression, it's like, gosh, she seems really pleasant. So we sit down having this interview. It's going to take me quite a long time to become unconvinced she's not terrific. If my first impression, that's a bias that we all have, right? First impression bias. It takes a while for you to become unconvinced that she's not so great after all, or he's not as good as I thought he was, or whatever it is, right? And of course, the dress is the first thing that they're going to see. Even before you open your mouth, they're going to see what you're wearing. So really kind of a powerful thing. It makes no sense for you to work your butt off this hard for this many years in college, right? And then not do some polishing just before you go out and have these interviews. I mean, that's crazy. I know what many of you are going to go through in terms of these applications. It's going to be extraordinary. Many of you will apply to many places. How many of you are applying to over a dozen places? Yeah. How much work is that? I mean, my word, and the stress of it, and wondering and hearing, and the rejection part of it, right? I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So do not, and you're coming around the clubhouse turn of this race you've been racing for 4+ years, don't stumble just before you hit the tape and not pay attention to what we're going to talk about today. So there's my little set. Okay, here's a few general rules that I want to share with you. First of all, big name labels do not necessarily equate to value. I appreciate that Rita and her daughter, who I know very well, she was a student of mine, and she comes back regularly and recruits in our building, and I walk over and usually talk to her and say hi and see what she's up to. And she's working for Marriott. My daughter is also one of the grads in our hospitality program and ran 2 hotels. She's now in the insurance business, but ran 2 hotels here in Cedar City, the Hampton Inn and the Marriott Spring Hill Suites for several years. And we went out for this last job interview that she had and also bought her a suit. I said to her, present for me and Mom, I really think this is an important interview for you. We're going to go out and we're going to spend some money. Took her to Dillard's down in St. George and got her a suit. We did not spend $450. I don't think you necessarily need to, right? So just because it's a fancy label does not necessarily mean that that's where you need to go, right? Stay away again from fashions to make you stand out. What does that look like? We're going to look at some pictures. I've got some visuals for you, some things that make you stand out. Again, you want to just be it's a little on the boring side and just kind of in a certain zone. And again, we've got some graphics we'll look at here. Again, back to this nonverbal. Just a quick question. Why do you think nonverbal is so powerful and more powerful even than the words that you choose in an interview? That's a sad statement. You probably have taken a lot of years developing the vocabulary that you have, especially now in this specialized field that you're in. It's like, dang, that anatomy class I learned 50 million words and terms in there. Are you telling me that this interview, I can't get a chance to show off my words? They're going to be looking at this stupid suit? Why do you think that nonverbal is so powerful? Thoughts on it? Yes?
I think, well, they see a lot of people, and so you don't want to, like you said, stand out in a bad way, so you want to blend in anyway. I'm just wondering if that is a factor, like the amount of people that they see, and you have to look the part.
Yeah. Thank you. Other thoughts on why is nonverbal more powerful, apparently, than vocal quality and the words that you choose? Yes.
So it's kind of like, I think that it's based in psychology. So if I'm, like, the way that you're looking at me right now, it makes me feel like you're not validating what I'm saying to you. So it makes you feel like, oh, well, this is a very negative experience and you want to stop talking, and it just shuts down everything. It shuts down the communication. So if you have a positive demeanor and you're really interested in keeping that contact, it makes a positive experience in psychology. So it's a really good way of continuing that conversation. So the words don't matter so much, but the body language matters.
Okay. Thank you for that. Other thoughts on body language more important than some of these other things or personal appearance? Go ahead.
I think that it honestly just comes down to trust. Like, you can see and you know that you can trust somebody, but like when they're talking, you're not really validated with those words. Like with their communication and their like nonverbal communication, you can like put those together and like really understand.
Yeah, as you probably heard, thank you for that. As you probably heard, if there's a contrast between what I'm saying and what I'm looking like, people do tend to believe the body language over the spoken word. Why do you suppose that is?
People lie.
Yeah.
It's hard to lie with the body.
That's right.
I think you've encapsulated right there. People will lie. And especially when they get in an interview, right? I mean, hello. We all know we're trying to put on our very best, or put on our best foot forward. We're trying to make something maybe more of our resume than is, we call that puffing or puffery in the sales game, right? We're trying to puff that, sell ourselves. And people know that we're going to stretch the truth a bit, maybe more than a bit, in an interview, but it's hard. Your body language, it's felt, will betray you. And somehow we know that on some level, even though we haven't had training in body language, we seem to kind of sense that we're being lied to because I'm saying I'm not mad, yet my brow is furrowed and whatnot, and so that's betraying what I'm saying with words. Yeah. So anyhow, some powerful things. We got to keep going here. Dressing professionally, again, communicates you want to be. I'm here, I've got my game face on, I really do. I'm wearing the uniform of the day, so to speak. I want to be taken seriously. Here's what we're going to do for both men and women. We're going to just take it kind of a piece at a time. And by the way, I usually do have my friend Nikki Tippett often presents with me. Last year they said, Greg, we want you to bring in a woman and could you guys co-produce this? And I said, absolutely. And so she did a great job. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it today, so I'll cover for her with her material. But I know her material well because we've done this for a while. So here's what we're going to do. We'll do men's suits, women's suits, shirts and blouses. We'll just kind of go back and forth piece by piece, shoes and shoes, and there you have it. By the way, please jump in, interrupt, ask a question at any point if it's on that particular clothing category or that article of clothing. Because again, we're going to cover it all from head to toe, including jewelry, watches, fragrances, makeup for women, you name it, we're going to cover it. So jump in if you have a thought or a question. Just a couple of quick thoughts on business suits here. Let me make a distinction between kind of interview wear and maybe a long-term investment. Could you have a blended suit, which typically means wool and polyester blend? Could you buy one of those and take that to an interview? I see no problem with that whatsoever. Most people are not going to be able to look at the suit. I don't even think most people who work in the industry could look at a suit from a distance and say, uh-oh, that's a polyester blend suit, therefore it's not as high quality, and start to make judgments about you. Very few people have that kind of eye or expertise, especially if the suit is new. Now as time goes on, a blended suit might wear a little bit differently and start to develop some sheen in some wear areas like the sleeves and maybe the seat and whatnot, where you're getting contact with lots of furniture. So a best bet for a long-term investment would be what we call a worsted wool suit. Now worsting is not a type of wool, it's a process that they put the wool through. It's a twisting process for the thread so that it comes up kind of looking like this, as opposed to say like a heavy herringbone men's coat that you'd get in Ireland that's really got some material. You can see there's some kind of fuzziness to it. That's not a worsted process. That's just a heavy wool suit. But almost all suits, they put through this twisting process to make the thing look kind of smooth, is essentially what it is, right? And so, yeah, so you might want to think about, do I want to have a blended suit, which will be less expensive, right? These are the ones you'll often see maybe on a commercial. Mr. Mac is advertising, you get two and then two for the price of one type of a thing. Those are always blended suits, right? You get like 2 suits for $300 or something like that. Those will be blended suits, and those are okay. If you're like, look, I'm not a suit person. I need a suit to go to this interview, and then I'm going to hang it in the closet and never wear it again. Fine, a blended suit would be not a problem at all. I would definitely recommend some type of a gray or a navy. A tropical weight suit is a lighter weight suit. So you're not, if it happens to be hot and humid back wherever you're going to be interviewing in the fall, right? If it happens to be warm and humid back there, you're not going to be sweating profusely and gasping for air. So for both men and women, tropical weight suit in the industry, when you say that, people know what you're talking about. It's lightweight. Why navy and gray? Well, again, those are just kind of the two colors in the industry, especially for men. They're going to connote this idea of seriousness. And it used to be, back when people had lots of suits and they wore these things year-round, they would wear lots of different colors at different times of the year. And a man would maybe wear a seersuckers kind of a looking coat, which is a white coat with light blue stripes on it. You'd have summer, you'd have a closet full of summer suits, then a closet full of winter suits. That's kind of gone away. You watch the last few American presidents. You just pull any of them up on YouTube, from Bush to Obama to you name it, right? We see when they're out there and they're in their suit, they're not on the golf course, it's going to be the navies, it's going to be the grays, almost exclusively. I'd almost defy you to find someone in some type of a brown suit. You just don't see it. Why? Because they know what they're trying to do with those suits. They know what they're trying to communicate. This idea of seriousness and purposefulness. Yeah.
So is black too harsh then? Because you didn't include black.
For women, I would say that's probably an okay color. You see lots of black suits for women, very few for men. And so most men who have a black suit will usually, that's their funeral suit. They'll wear that to funerals, but not so much with women. With women, you're going to see black suits and maybe a nice white blouse, which looks terrific, by the way. Now, if you own a black suit, if you're a man who had a black suit, would I discourage you from wearing it to the interview? Probably not, especially if you really like the suit, it really hangs on you well, you feel super comfortable in it, then by all means, wear that suit. And certainly for women, yeah, black would be fine. Oh, what do you got?
A brown suit.
No kidding. Is that right? What did you Google to find that, just out of curiosity?
Obama in a brown suit.
Okay. Kind of cheated.
I see Bush in one too.
My guess is if you Googled Obama in a suit and started scrolling, it might take you a while to find Obama in a brown suit. I stand somewhat corrected. But again, you cheated. Thanks for being honest. Obama in a brown suit.
Talk about it in sociology. That you're not taking it seriously if you're in a light colored, like a light brown colored suit.
Yeah.
As you would be in a dark colored suit.
Yeah. And I love the look of them. I've had a couple of light suits. I dig the look of them, but yeah, for this particular purpose, again, now you'll have those in your repertoire for other kinds of things. If you go to work in an industry where like people wear suits, then by all means you'll maybe have some of those. You'll have some grays and blues and the whole thing. You've got this palette of these things, so you don't bore everyone to tears. But for this particular purpose, your interview, yeah, for men, again, navy and gray, that's probably where you want to be. Gosh, I'm sorry, I cannot. You know, I used to teach in this room, and dang, that projector seems like really dull in terms of how bright it is, right? That's crazy. So, that is, let me just see if I can kill a light here. Nope, that's okay. Is that okay? Is that bad? No, that sucks. Stop.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that cool?
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
good.
All right. Yeah, that's a bit better. I just want to make sure these pop a little bit so you can kind of see them. There's some. What are some of the problems with these suits? Let's kind of just go around the circle here. For an interview now, in other circumstances, there's no problem here. Let me just give you some thoughts on some of the problems here. I'll ask you about some and tell you about some others. What's the problem here?
Too casual.
It is too casual. This is for many, you might think Casual Fridays is like jeans and a polo shirt, and in some businesses, some places of work, that is correct. But for some companies where they're very dressy, that is Casual Friday. So he's wearing a sports coat, right? With the different colored pair of pants, maybe some type of khakis or something like that, whether it's cotton or wool, I can't really tell. He's got looks a bit like a bit of a casual belt. He's open collar, super look for some casual kind of an after dinner, people are going out for drinks or something like that, no problem. But to wear to a job interview, a school interview, that's just too casual and doesn't cut it. These two in the middle are just too fashion, what we call fashion forward. Fashion forward means kind of cutting edge, like you might see, I mean, well, look at the guy, he's on a runway, right? If you see somebody on a runway in Milan, Italy at a fashion show, you probably, that is not something that you want to put on your body to take to an interview, right? If you walked in like this to one of these schools in the Midwest, and walked in with that whole look, and the red socks, and the whole 9 yards, and the short pants, and he's got the pocket square, what, he's got a carnation? That would be the laughing stock of that day. But you'd make their day. Those doctors would love it. It'd be like, 5 years from now, do you remember the guy? Do you remember, right? Do you remember this guy when he walked in? Oh, I know, I took a picture. You did? Yeah, I took a picture of him. I couldn't help it. It was crazy. I don't know if this guy thought, is he a model or is he going to be a doctor, right? So these two, they're just absolutely too out there. What's the problem over here in this, up in this corner there?
Which one?
Up in the far right corner there?
Headphones?
Yeah. Get rid of the earbuds, get rid of the headphones for this particular day. You do not want to be seen caught wandering around that place, even if it's before the interview, kind of plugged in like that. It just gives a little bit too much of a message that you're not too serious about this whole thing. And that made me completely wrong. You might be just trying to get some music in your head just to calm down, like athletes will do before a big game, right? You've seen them do it. They come in wearing music, they're trying to get in the zone. Totally understandable, but for many people that may not be understandable. And so it looks a little too youthful and unserious to some older people. So leave that type of thing at home. Over here, the fun socks, again, we're in a fun socks place, I get it. Although it seems to be dying just a little in terms of popularity. This is not a day for that. The guy here, these people on these sports shows, I love them. God bless these people. They try to out jazz each other with coming up with the loudest sport coats and whatnot. Although this, I get the feeling, is a suit. This looks like, from where I'm sitting, it looks like it's heavy chalk stripe, which is really, a chalk stripe is much thicker than a pinstripe, right? So you can see it at quite a distance. It's got massive lapels. It looks to me like it's a double-breasted suit, which I'll show you a picture of, I think, in a few minutes. Well, here's a double-breasted suit here, too. The lapels are massive. You've got the geometry here. You've got the geometry crossways with the tie, which makes people maybe a little bit seasick with all of these arrows going every different directions. So that is way too loud. And the long hair and the whole thing, and it's just too Hollywood. And that's great for Sports Center, and that's fine if they want to do that. Not for this interview. The only problem I have here really is I don't think a double-breasted suit is you should wear a single-breasted suit. We'll show you a lot of pictures in a minute. And the pocket square, I think, ditch the pocket square. You might be saying, oh, wait a minute, I've read about pocket squares, and that means you're a little bit more dressed up. Yes, it does. But for a young person to wear something like that to a job interview, it looks a little too ostentatious and just a little too like you're trying too hard and a little too showy, a little too flamboyant for a young person. There are some things that an older person can get away, like French cuffs with a tight cufflink. Could not think of that word. With a cufflink and these kinds of things, and a pocket square. Listen, if you're coming in and they're offering you maybe somewhere between $250,000 and $350,000 as a vice president for that company, okay, and you've got some gray in your temples and whatnot, and you're an older person, hey, no problem. Older people can get away with some things that young people need to be a little bit more, maybe humble is the right word, and a little more cautious. Yes?
I just was curious about tie clips, whether a tie clip is a good idea for a young applicant or not.
I think for men, women can get away with a little more metal or jewelry. I think for men, you've got maximum, you've got two things on your body that are metal beyond your belt. And that's these two things. This, that, done. No other rings, no lapel pins from the fraternity or any other thing like that. I think you need to really, really keep it simple. We'll talk more a little about women, and I'll ask maybe Rita to chime in as well on some bracelets and some other things, but you need to kind of keep that a little bit under control as well. But for men, say it again.
Understated.
That's a great word. Understated, yeah. Again, you don't want to be drawing attention with all kinds of metallic-y things, and especially if it were to represent, if that tie bar were to represent some organization that might get somebody going, oh, what is that? Oh, well, this is from my church, or it's from my fraternity or sorority or something like that. You don't want to be giving indications of things that, or especially something from their school. I mean, my gosh, how bad would that look? Because now it looks like you're really trying too hard. You know, I've got, by the way, I got mine in the bookstore today, an hour ago. I've now got my tie bar from your university. That is not something that you want. That looks manipulative, and boy, that can set people running for the exit when it comes to wanting to have you being a student there. Yeah.
So are cufflinks out then?
I think.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to talk shirts in just a moment, but yes. Yeah. Cufflinks, I think, would be out. Yeah.
In relation to that top right, how about beards?
Yeah. I think that you're fine anymore. A few years ago, I was saying no facial hair. That would be my get rid of the beards and all of that. But frankly, today, I think if the beard is kind of well trimmed, I think you're fine. I have my 27-year-old son's at the University of Utah. He's studying industrial design. His beard is down to here, and he and I have had those conversations. And I'm like, but he is, I will tell you this, he is going into kind of an artistic world. Maybe he can get away with a little bit more than he could otherwise. I remember when he'd done a lot of summer work elsewhere and was an installer for Vivint for many years, made a lot of money. Last year, summer, he decided, I don't want to do that. So he started looking for a job up in Salt Lake City, and he couldn't. He was having trouble finding one. And his mom and I were in the car with him one day, and I gave a gentle suggestion that the beard might be a bit of an impediment. By the way, I didn't tell you, he's also 5 feet tall. He's got some physical handicaps. So he looks a little bit like one of the 7 dwarfs, just saying, right? 5 feet tall with a 3-foot beard, that's a dwarf. And so...
That's awesome that you would say that.
And he rolls with it. He just rolls with all this. We call him, when he comes home, we call him the rabbi, so we'll take him to church and people will say, and he'll play that role, he'll say blessings for everybody. It's just, we have a lot of fun with it. But I teased him about it, and I told him, we got in a bit of an argument because I said, dude, maybe there's people that you're going to apply, because he's applying to a lot of retailers. And I said, that might be a little bit off-putting, right? I would just maybe trim that beard. I get a lot of compliments on this beard. Yeah. And I'm like, I know you do. It's a good-looking beard. And not many people can grow one that fast, that long. So I'm with you. I'm just saying, in certain environments, it may not be the best. But I would say if the beard is kept, yours, I think I'm looking at 3 or 4 beards right now. I don't have a problem with those, and I'm thinking in this environment, you'd probably not. If you ask my honest opinion, what I say, if you said to me, Greg, I could shave this, I got no problem shaving this, I'd say that might be a choice you'd want to consider. You'd want to consider, right? Because think of it this way: in that panel of people that might be looking at you, 1 or 2 may be off-put by it, but I don't think so anymore. There becomes so doggone common for people, and young people especially. I don't think it's going to be a big negative. Could there be 1 or 2 people that object to it? Maybe. Would there be anyone objecting to you being clean-shaven? No one. No one. Go ahead.
Just to back up to suits, and we'll probably get into it with shirts. As far as cut, it's like a fit or European cut, okay?
Sure.
But just don't go too far with like the athletic cuts.
Yeah, you can. An athletic cut suit is fine if you're an athletic build.
Sure.
Don't try to get. I'm not that any longer. I have worn suits like that previously. Those are not in my repertoire any longer, right? At the age of almost 58. Those are not in my repertoire any longer, but they're very common. Gosh, are they common. Athletic fit shirts athletic. We were shopping recently up in Salt Lake City. Man, everything I laid my hands on was with athletic fit, this and that and the other. And I'm done my own reality check and said, hey, there's too much around the middle for you to have an athletic cut thing. So don't look like you're kind of squeezed into the whole thing. But that could work. That could be just fine. Yeah. All right. Now, this is a little bit more, in my opinion, along the lines of what we're talking about. If you look at, even though this guy's standing in a little bit of a, maybe a funky looking position, but just notice how boring these are. Boring is your watchword for this thing. I'm just telling you, men. It needs to be, you're like, oh, that doesn't look very exciting. Yeah, and boy, if I went shopping with my girlfriend, she wouldn't be very excited about that. Yeah, that's where you want to be, where your girlfriend doesn't like it. Well, that's kind of boring. You're like, thank you, I'll take this one. You know, I've had people that, my brother, his wife used to dress him up all the time, and I'm like, that is something that the Joker from Batman would wear, in my opinion. Do not, what is that purple thing that you're wearing, right? That's not where you want to be. And so these kinds, notice this, the shirt's almost exclusively solid. The light blues, the whites, pretty much that's where you want to be. Again, we'll talk shirts more in just a moment. Let's look at women's suits for just a minute. And again, I'll defer to my colleague Rita if you'd like to chime in. And if you have any questions, maybe I might just bounce them off of me and send them her way. But here you've got fabrics for winter, autumn, and spring. Wool is a good choice. Summer cotton and linen might be good choices, especially if blended with a small amount of some type of a stretchy fabric, like lycra or something like that. That's a great addition to a suit. I've seen some that have a silk blend as well. Those are nice. Colors black, navy blue, charcoal taupe, probably very acceptable. Darker colors are typically, again, traditionally worn in winter. Lighter colors worn in spring, and some of the schools are no longer that hard and fast. So if it were in the spring and you were wearing a darker colored suit, that really should not be a problem. Nobody is going to have that kind of an eye and be that critical to say, well, that's too dark for March. I just don't see that happening, right? Use a lint roller just before, make sure that the thing is kind of free of fuzzies and things like that. I guess I could go for men as well. Definitely have the suit professionally altered. You just don't want, I've seen lots of people on our campus in different places. I saw a man just yesterday morning, 2 days ago, the other morning, I thought, why is that coat down covering half of your hand? That thing needs to be up right at your wrist, and in most cases, maybe letting a little bit of that sleeve kind of show through there, just hang beneath that. That's about where that needs to be. Who on earth, I thought, of this older guy, super nice guy, and he's got this suit coat hanging way down low on his hand. Have these things altered to where they fit you properly, and where you feel like you can move and sit down and stand up to where the thing fits you well. It's right for your midsection. The length is right on both, of course, the pants, women if you wear pants, as opposed to a skirt, which we'll talk about that in just a moment. And yeah, for sleeve length, those types of things, right? Again, we're talking now, the reason we're breaking this down to kind of two pieces for men, because obviously the pants are obvious unless you're going to a Scottish fair of some type of thing, the gathering of the clans and the Highlands of Scotland, and you're going to wear your family kilt colors, right? That aside, men, you're going to be wearing this whole suit. It's a thing that you buy together. But for women, you do have some choices. You could go with a skirt, which tends to be a little bit more conservative as opposed to suit pants where it's a little bit more contemporary. I want to ask Rita about this. Certainly in the world of work for women, and again, we're not talking about work, we're talking about a job interview, which is different. Even if they're quite dressy there. Suit pants, very, very popular for these kinds of settings. For an interview, Rita, what's your counsel?
Yeah, so I interview at Rocky Vista College of Osteopathic Medicine and see the women that come in, and I will tell you it's about half and half. If you are more comfortable in slacks, then wear slacks. This should not be the first time you put on a skirt and you're awkward about how to, you know, cross your legs or whatever. So if you're more comfortable in slacks, wear slacks, but wear trousers, women's suit, trouser, you know, buy a suit. But if you're more comfortable in a skirt, wear a skirt. So it's totally up to you at that point.
I like the sit down to ensure you're fit
Yes.
when you're seated.
Yes,
Yeah.
it should not be too tight, it should not be too short.
It shouldn't slide up your thigh when you sit down.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Work with these. Do not let that interview, do not time this thing to where you're like, oh, I've got, before I fly out, I've got to run down to the alteration lady and get, oh, thank heavens, it's ready. Throw in the suitcase and then go, and then you get to the hotel the next morning and wah, wah, you got a problem. That is not the time to try that suit on, and to wear it around a little bit, break it in, make sure that you can move, sit, stand up, etc., fairly comfortably to where things aren't showing, and get somebody else to chime in on that, not just you.
Right.
Let people look at it from the back and all around, because there might be some things that you're not seeing that they might be able to say, you know what's happening when you kind of bend over, this is what's happening, and you can see, really? So you don't want to do that. Play with these a bit.
And we would recommend that you buy your whatever you're going to wear well in advance, so you have your mock interview in the suit that you're going to wear. I don't know how many students come in and they go, well, I still haven't bought my suit yet, so I'm just doing my mock interview in this old suit. Wear what you're going to wear to your mock interviews, okay?
Yeah, for several reasons. One, you get accustomed to kind of, again, being in that zone. You got your game face on. You've got there's a mindset. There was an old saying that said, clothes make the man, and then people would disagree with that, so I don't think we say that much anymore. But you know, there's something to it. I will tell you, when I come to work, and I don't often wear a suit because I don't necessarily like to wear suits, but when I do come to work and I'm in a suit, I will admit there's something different that happens to me. I behave differently. I act differently. I think I speak a bit differently. I gesture a bit differently. It's just, so you want to have those practices, again, with your uniform on, right? With your game day uniform on. Yeah, thought or question?
Saying, dress sharp, feel sharp, like that's how, I've just heard that saying several times, where
Yeah.
you feel how you look.
No question, no question. And you start to become comfortable. Your body kind of knows, in your brain and your heart know, okay, we've got the suit on, it's now time to think and behave and react in a certain way, as opposed to when you're dressed casual. It works, trust me on that one. If you've never experimented with that much, clothing does make a difference in how you're coming across and how you're, not just in terms of appearance to the person, but how you're thinking and processing stuff. My friend Nikki put together some things that she thought were some kind of do's. Ladies, I don't know if you guys kind of agree with that.
The one in the middle with
This here?
the woman from the scandal, the pants seem a
Kerry
little
Washington.
long.
Okay,
They're a little long and hanging on the ground. That would be my only criticism.
okay.
Wear like a platform hill like that either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then my other comment, so I'm picking the don'ts here.
Yes, no, you're good.
Would be the woman on the far left, looks like she's bare-legged. I would never, ever, women, if you are wearing a skirt, do not go bare-legged.
Yeah, even if it's a warm day, sorry about that, ladies.
Do not, do not, do not.
So
That's
question then, what would you recommend, like, you're talking about stockings are tight, but what color?
Okay,
Nude.
hold that, hold that.
Oh, then we'll go
You got
on.
We're gonna get to
Okay.
that.
Okay,
We'll get to that. I think we're gonna
Okay.
get to that. Here's some thoughts. I think that's also Kerry Washington, actually. But she had some don'ts here. Thoughts on why not, ladies? Thoughts on why not?
That bottom middle is very casual.
Okay.
Yeah, way too casual. You got the sunglasses going on.
Roll the
The one on the
hands.
top kind of like, looks almost matronly and not a suit.
To me, that's Anne Hathaway, I think.
Uh-huh.
Is that, is this skirt a little on the short side?
yes.
Uh-huh.
Skirt's a little on the short side here. This with this kind of, I don't know what this whole thing is. It's not a suit. Number one, it's not a suit. We've got a kind of a very casual kind of footwear going on there, and this thing is slid up. That again, a little too fashion forward. And yeah, anyhow, that was her list of don'ts.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, on shirts, just real quickly, we'll talk just for a couple. Let's see what I got on shirts. Yeah, just one thing, and then I'll add a couple of thoughts. 3 basic collar types are from left to right: a button-down collar, a straight collar, which I'm wearing today, and then a spread collar, which is basically the same as a straight collar. It's just a little bit more open, much like a tuxedo shirt. If you've ever worn a tuxedo, they always come with a spread collar. Why? Because you'll be wearing a bow tie usually with that tux, and the spread collar provides the nice kind of width in that area to have that bow tie fitting in there. Believe it or not, the least casual of these, and one I would not wear with a suit, or the most casual one, I guess I should say, the one I would not wear with a suit, is the button-down collar. Some people think that those are a little more dressy, but they're actually not. Here's why. A little shirt history for you. Ready for some shirt trivia history? This comes from back in the day when polo players would go out to play polo, and they'd be riding these horses and galloping down the field, and their big collars on these polo shirts would flip up and kind of get in their faces, especially back in the days when manufacturers didn't know how to make things that were kind of stiff and things that were, so these collars were kind of floppy and they'd get up in their face. So guess what the solution was? You're looking at it. Let's put a button on the collar. So it's got this athletic connotation, and it still has that today. So back to this guy, for example, this guy here with this, he's wearing, it looks like a straight collar, but if you had a button-down collar, that's not an issue for a sport coat like that. But again, if you're wearing an interview suit, notice none of these are button-down collars. This guy looks like he's got a spread collar going on. The rest of these, maybe that one too. The rest of these folks look like they've got straight collars on. So that's where you want to be. Also, stay away from short sleeve shirts. In my opinion, executives and people that are the short sleeve shirt has a connotation of you're kind of, frankly, you're kind of a lower rank person in a work setting. And the reason that you've got these bare arms is so you can do a lot of physical work. People that are a little bit more on the upper crust side, and I know that might sound kind of odd, but even if it's warm where you go to do these interviews, gentlemen, you should wear a long sleeve shirt. Any other thoughts on shirts? Questions on shirts? Yeah, and again, back to the French cuff, which is kind of a longer cuff, and so you fold it back and then you pin it down with a cufflink, the word I could not remember a few moments ago. That's a little too dressy, a little too ostentatious for this type of a setting for a young person. Yes?
So also with certain shirts, like those different colored buttons, is it always best to have like a white button or something that matches the color of the shirt? Like what's the rule of thumb with that?
I would say in this case, that just the white button, again, you kind of want to banish when it comes to, and not be any kind of a standout type of a person. That's the common button color, a translucent button or a white button, or kind of a combination of both. Really, it's the front of it's kind of, if you look at it real close, it's kind of translucent on the front, and the back of it's white, giving it a white appearance. And so I can't believe I know that much about a button on a shirt. Anyhow, so that's that. So I'd stay with white. Don't get too cute with colors and whatnot. Yeah, super basic. Okay, women's blouses and tops. A few do's and don'ts for us here. The do's, first purchases, should be some type of a dress shirt, solid white, cream black, or a color to match your suit. Blouses can be high quality cotton, silk, or a microfiber material. These are some good choices. And always you want to tuck the shirt in. In a more casual setting, you may not want to. Same with men. Especially if you're long-waisted, you might go to work with your shirt untucked in today's environment, button-down shirt. That's a casual look, not for an interview look, right? No inappropriate skin showing. Again, practice picking something off the floor, physically picking something off the floor, and see if anything starts to show that you don't want being shown in this kind of a setting, and so you need to be very cautious about that. No bright hues or loud patterns, no transparent material, no button-down collar. Have I got anything more on that? Oh, here's a couple of do's over here, and a couple of don'ts over here. Why the don'ts over there? Thoughts on that? What are some of the problems on the right?
Too loud on the flowers.
Right, too busy.
Yeah.
It's distracting.
And then the other one, she just has things like visual and stuff.
Yeah,
She needs to button up more.
she needs to button that up. We'll start with that.
Distraction.
And that could be distracting. I think the sleeves rolled up too, that may not be a good call if you've got your suit coat on top of it.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, those girls don't have their suit coats on, is that like,
Say that, the girls don't what?
they don't have their suit coats on?
Yeah, I think with Nikki picking this, she just wanted to make sure the blouse was shown. But you should have your suit coat on in the interview. And probably leave it on. By the way, that brings up a good point. Probably leave it on. So you don't walk in there and start kind of disrobing in the middle of the interview. But if they invited you to and said, look, we know we really appreciate you being here. It is crazy hot down here.
AC's off today.
The AC's off today. We're really sorry. And they've got their coats off and they invite you to do likewise. That would not be a problem. Other than that, think cool thoughts. Bring with you a York peppermint patty and take a sniff of that or something like that to try to breathe shallowly to try to keep cool. Yeah.
That's sort of the cue I was always taught. It's like if you're at a school and you're doing like a walk around the campus or something, whoever's like the kingpin of that group, just follow their lead.
Kind of mimic them.
So if the dean takes his suit coat off, it's okay
Sure.
for you to take your suit coat off.
It's good counsel. I think that's good counsel. Yes.
For women, where we don't wear ties, is it better to have your shirt all the way buttoned up, like the bottom middle, or is it better to have it slightly unbuttoned, just not, like, conservatively?
My opinion is either of these are fine. I would not feel comfortable with that's me, ladies.
I think it depends on the shirt, it depends on your facial style. Sometimes if you button up, it makes you look really larger, your face looks larger. So it depends on the outfit. Okay. I agree, the top one is much more appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Ties. Gentlemen, here's just a few thoughts on ties. Tie widths do change a bit. I just wanted to stay a little bit on the contemporary side. I thought, let me look up kind of the latest information I could find. The appropriate tie widths or common tie widths are about in that zone as of last year. It's just the latest data I had on this. This does not change like year to year, but maybe in 5 and 6 and 7 year gentle waves, this might change a little bit, right? Ties the last few years, no question, have become narrower. You might be looking at my tie thinking, well, that's a little even wider. I've got some skinnier ties than that, Greg. Would that work? Well, I would say, let me tell you about this tie. I measured it this morning just so I could speak to you about it. I thought, well, I wonder how wide this one is. So I took a tape measure out, and that's 3 inches right across that in the widest point there. So that's a little bit narrower than what they're saying is kind of the max for acceptability. So just food for thought. Kind of be somewhere in that zone. Do consider your body type. Wider guys or wider ties. Don't ever wear a clip-on tie. Raise your right hand to the square and promise me you'll never do something like that, right? Covenant with me right now that you will never do that. Tie jewelry, again, the question was asked earlier. No tie jewelry, stay away from those kinds of things. Striped tie and a striped shirt, especially if the stripes are kind of bold, it's like this goes this way, this goes that way, and people are starting to get, it's just too busy, right? So you could wear, the nice thing is if you have a solid shirt like I'm wearing today, you can get away with a lot of kinds of tie patterns, I think. A garish or a silly tie, you might love, Tasmanian devil, that's great. But keep that to yourself, and don't wear Taz on a tie, or Tweety Bird, or something goofy, or Thor, just wearing the colors today, you gotta represent SUU. This is not a time for that kind of
I
thing.
was thinking Thor the super.
Yeah, or that Thor, the superhero, or our Thor, the bird. No Thors. No Thors should ever appear on of any variety should be on your tie. When you tie it, this has been common for many, many years. Even when I was in school, that was kind of the rule where the tie came. That has not changed much. If you look at early 20th century, like my grandfather, who lived in LA, and his ties, you know, a lot of those ties, they were shorter ties. And then somewhere late 20th century, maybe mid to late 20th century, this kind of became the rule for the tie length when you tie it. So, and that's really never changed at all. And then be careful when you're ironing that tie. If you were, for example, if you got to a hotel, you got an interview the next day, you're like, okay, let me get the suit out, let's check for the wrinkles, let's make sure everything's good. And your tie has somehow become wrinkled, be super careful. Either you need to put that in a really light setting, because most ties, even less expensive ties you'll get from Ross, are probably going to have silk in them, if not 100% silk. You have to put that in a really low setting. Or what I often do is, in case I get the setting slightly wrong, I just lay the tie on the ironing board, throw my shirt over the top of it as a way to protect it. Then you can crank that heat up and just give it a quick once over, and then it's no problem. You'll look at the tie, it'll be wrinkle-free, and it'll look just fine. So that's a little bit about ties. I thought I'd give you some examples, just in the next couple of visuals, just to kind of show you some things of what we're talking about. Again, always match your tie width with your lapel width. So this guy's got a little bit of a wider lapel, and the tie's a little bit wider. So if you go from right to left, you go over here and you see that's a bit of a thinner tie, and again, kind of matches the lapels. It's hard to go wrong with ties. It really is. And you really can't find, I mean, if I brought in some ties and laid them out in front of you and said, I'll make you a deal. If you can tell me which tie came from Nordstrom versus Ross, I'll give you $5. And I'll bet I could win a lot of money if I took those bets today. Because seriously, I think one of my favorite ties, and I get compliments on from time to time, people are like, that's a great tie. And it is like it's like a Chaps tie or a Ralph Lauren tie something, but I got it at Ross. That's like $12, man. And so you do not need to spend for everything that you own a lot of money, right? I don't get everything from Ross. I'll freely admit that. I do get some things from Nordstrom, but always on sale because I'm a college professor. And that's what college professors do, is they find things on sale. Women's shoes and socks, we'll talk about men's here in just a moment. I'm sorry I'm going a little bit over time, but we're coming down to the clubhouse turn here. So no higher than a 3-inch heel, and even that to me is it fair to say that might be pushing it a little bit?
That's pushing it.
Yeah, that's a little bit, it just looks too cocktail hour-y, evening out on the town-y. And that's not where you want to be with this particular look. Closed toe shoe, absolutely. No open toe shoe, women, that's just not, we don't do that in an interview setting at all, ever. Sensible flats could be okay as well. Always wear pantyhose, black or nude. Anything to add to that, you guys? Lightweight socks or hose with dress pants. Okay. Here's some thoughts on accessories. Jewelry, simple and understated. Should not provide a soundtrack. No noisy banging things. People should not hear you coming before you arrive in the room. What is that? Chink, chink, chinky, chink. That should not be you. Watchers are not considered jewelry in a work setting. Should be conservative and not too. Oops, sorry, I'm missing a T. Oh, there. Sorry about that. Perfume should be a subtle accent to your personality, not a personality unto itself. You might want to be particularly careful with that. Just a real hint of that. It seems in our environment, many people are allergic to these things too, and they have a kind of a reaction to that, or they don't feel well when they get around. I was talking to my wife the other day. She said, my mom was in the car with us, and we picked her up, and then went to go swing by, pick my wife up, and she rolled down the window in the back, and she explained to me, like, sorry, your mom and the perfume and the thing, and that just was a little bit over the top. And I hadn't noticed it, but she did, and so I get that. We have a couple of, I know I've been to one work setting on campus where the receptionist, they have a sign out there for the receptionist who has some issues with this, and it kind of says, please don't come in here with perfumes and scents and whatnot. So that's becoming kind of an issue in the world of work, it seems, where people are voicing the fact that they're allergic to things or that it makes them not feel well. And I like this. This is my friend Nikki added this. I thought, I like that comment. I think that's right on the mark for men and women. One of your best accessories is your winning smile and you communicating with body language that I'm very enthusiastic to be here, and I'm excited for this opportunity. I talk a lot more about this when we do interview behaviors and whatnot, but I'm glad that she included, because I think it's part of your uniform, it's part of your dress. Yeah, thoughts?
What about like piercings? I know that like some, if you have like 2 holes in your ears, like showing one in, or.
I wouldn't have I don't think that I would see a problem with that in most of the environments you're going to go to. Pierced ears would not be an issue for me in my thinking. Other piercings, I would think nose rings, things of that nature. My thinking is this is my opinion, I'll defer to the, we'll point like, they do in baseball, they point off to the third base ump to see what the third base ump saw in terms of did the person swing or not. So I'm going to point down here in a minute, but my thinking would be to somewhat minimize those. The super safest answer is maybe 1 pair of earrings, and not something that's too major, hoopy and bangly and noisy and kind of, yeah, maybe like a stud, sure, and maybe 1 of those. 2, I don't think would be a major problem, certainly would be for me. But you start getting into other piercings in other parts and in your tongue and various locations, that would be distracting, and that's my take. That would be distracting. So another hand back here too.
No, I was gonna ask about
Yeah.
So just back to heels really fast. It's really popular in women's clothing right now to wear a really chunky heel. Is that an issue? Do they care? And a chunky heel makes
I
it
think
look as though
it
the
tends,
heel
if it's too casual, stay away from it.
Okay.
So like
It's like a
platforms,
classic look though.
like platform heels, I would not wear platform heels. I would wear business style heels.
Right.
Yeah.
You're talking about a heel that's tall and is thicker than this kind
Yes,
of
it's not
heel.
a stiletto, it's fat.
Yeah,
It's fat.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Some of those are okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
But again, back to your height rule too.
Yes.
right.
Don't violate the height rule either. Just a few thoughts on belts, just super quick, gentlemen. Dress belts are different than casual belts. And the reason I've got these listed under casual belts here is the braided belt, cloth belt, stitching where you're seeing this very visible stitching. You want to stay away with a pair of jeans or even khakis, hey, no problem. But this kind of a thing, you want to keep it boring and pretty simple. The stitching, you'll notice, is essentially the same color as the belt. Notice there's contrasted stitching here. That just immediately says casual. That's not a men's dress belt. So go with the dress belt. So quick thoughts on shoes for men. Oxford, this comes from Oxford University. Prior to young men back in the 1800s in Oxford coming up with this idea to have a shorter shoe. People wore boots, they got mud in there. This is the day before streets were paved, right? So there'd be cobblestone streets in England, and it rains a lot in England, so a lot of young men wore boots, and these students at Oxford said, hey, how about something that's shorter? And it still bears that name today. The original Oxford shoe is this one here. They call it a cat toe shoe. And then there's a saddle shoe, a plain toe, a boucher is what that's called. Wingtips, and sometimes you'll see combinations. I used to have a pair of tasseled wingtip shoes, not lace-up, just slip-on shoes, right? Penny loafer. All of these will be fine. Only one thing to know about shoes is, in general, the lace-up is considered dressier, technically, than a slip-on shoe. So, that would be maybe something you want to consider. And again, is this a dressy event? An interview? Maybe the interview of your life? I think so. So you might want to err on the side of a little caution and go with a lace-up shoe as opposed to a slip-on shoe. Portfolios and purses. Here's a few thoughts on these. Oh, I neglected to bring a pad folio that I was going to bring today to show you that. But, oh, thank you. Yeah. That's great. I appreciate that. Look at that.
Yay!
Outstanding.
Good job.
Woo! Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm going to hang on to this for a few minutes because I think I've got something else on pad folios here in just a moment. Yeah. So, having something with you women, this is a bit of more of a challenge, I think, for women than for men. Because bringing something like this for a man, that's about all you need, right? For women, that could be a little bit more of a challenge. But women, let me just let you read that and then see if you have any thoughts or questions.
So like a messenger bag or a purse?
I would say, I've been getting questions about messenger bags the last couple of seminars that I've done, last couple of times I've done this for different groups. And I'm still saying no to messenger bags. I see them on campus, you do too. For a student, you bet. And they're carrying things, and I've got books I'm going from class to class. That seems to me to be a little bit too much, maybe casual and a little bit too much. It's like, where are you going with all of that type of a thing? Like a backpack, you wouldn't want to bring a backpack to a job interview either. But I think certainly interviewers, both men and women, would understand if a woman brings a purse, that she's going to have certain things in there, because women's clothing is not built for car keys and et cetera, usually, right? You don't have places to keep those things. So having a purse of some type, yeah, that could work.
I still encourage you to not go with a purse and maybe just take the keys, stick it in a coat pocket. You know, you're a little more comfortable without navigating things, extra things. If you just have a padfolio and your phone somewhere, same as a man.
Yeah, I think, am I going to talk about phones? Let's just talk phones now. I don't think I have a thought on phones. That could be a challenge because there's such a multi-purpose device for us in so many areas, right? For example, if they said to you, listen, we'd like to see you again, or what's your tomorrow like? And you're like, uh-oh, calendar on phone, calendar is in car, on phone, locked up. I'm out of my calendar, I don't have my, or you're trying to navigate the campus, and you're like, you know, I've got my map downloaded here, and I don't have my phone with me, and so that does become a challenge. I would simply say this about the phone: if you do bring it in at all, you better dang well, with a capital D, dang, you better make sure that sucker is off. And I don't mean on vibrating, because you know and I know people can hear phones vibrating. In a quiet moment in that interview, your phone's vibrating in your pocket. People can hear it at 10 paces. I mean, we all do, right? So be really careful about that. This is not a time where you want that phone blowing up and people going, seriously? That phone is blowing up in the middle of this interview? And so that's a bad, especially for older people. They have issues already with young people and their phones, you know, some get a little testy with that. So if you have that thing blowing up on you in the middle of the interview, that would be no bueno.
Well, also I think that's a distraction for you. When that vibrates in your pocket, you're like, ooh, I wonder who that was.
Right.
And you're in the middle of a thought. Now tell me that's not going to change your thought process.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research to back up what she says. There's some research on students in testing environments. Students that bring their phone into a test, check this out, in a university setting, bring their phone to a test, have it turned off and face down, sitting away from them, taking the test, their heart rate is going to be higher, true story, their heart rate is going to be higher than if they have left the phone out in the car or another room. The mere presence of their phone will increase someone's heart rate. So in other words, is it on your mind when you've got it on your person? It's on your mind all the time. That's nuts when I read that the other day. Brought that home as a descendant, sharing that with my family. We've got grandkids come along now and we're trying to talk about technology and issues. It's kind of fun. We're having some fun with that. Anyhow, here's some thoughts on makeup, in which I'm an expert, of course. Teasing. Minimal foundation, whatever that is. No, I do know what foundation is. I have been married for 32 years. I know what foundation is. Natural eyeshadow color, or lipstick, not lip gloss. Gloss is too shiny and youthful for a formal occasion like an interview. Lipstick, and definitely a subtle color. That bright red lipstick that you think makes you look terrific, that may be at the club, but not for this, right? No heavy eyeliner, light brush, no bronzer. I'm not sure, I can't remember why Nikki included this crazy little posting, but anyhow. Hair and nails, keep it really simple. I kind of like the French manicure picture there, I really do. I think anything beyond that is just maybe a little too, I don't know, nail color?
No color.
No,
No color. Too distractive.
I think so.
Just clean, clean.
Yeah, I think.
Remember what career you're applying for.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, no nails. No nails going into healthcare.
Maybe that applies to men too.
Yeah.
Make sure your hands are clean.
Yeah. I think. Notice the hair up, hair back, or hair down. You've got certain choices there, I think. Yeah. Again, these are Nikki's thoughts. I'm not quite sure what someone would buy at Walmart.
Do not buy Walmart.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You should have omitted that. When she said that last time we did this together, I'm like, really?
Maybe for certain things like your stockings and if you're gonna wear an
True.
undershirt, that kind of stuff that
True.
you don't see.
Yeah.
Good call.
Dillard's.
Yeah. Dillard's, yeah, we're missing Dillard's there.
Dillard's.
Yeah, Dillard's, some of these department stores can be a very, very good place to buy. You're going to spend definitely some more money at Dillard's, but there's going to be some quality there. It's not going to be Nordstrom price usually. It's a notch down from there. But it's a notch up from JCPenney. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Yeah. Last thought here, just some general appearance issues. Again, jewelry, earrings, lapel pins, etc. For men, again, a wedding band and a watch. That's it. That's it, guys. That's all probably got to bring with you. Again, the portfolio or padfolio, I kind of like what this communicates. You know, I will admit a complaint that I sometimes have with some of my students. I get an email, something, they call me up or say, hey, listen, I need some career advice. I'm thinking graduate school. Greg, could we come by and talk? Sure, no problem. And I will tell you, that, and this happens to me, I don't know, I'd say a few times a school year. 7, 8 times a school year, somebody comes by for something that doesn't relate to the class, right? Something other than that. And can I just tell you, this kind of blows me away a little bit. I would say 9 out of 10 people that come to my office to ask me for advice do not bring anything to write with. Kind of offended by that. I will admit in the past, sometimes I've been a little bit testy. I've leaned over and grabbed a pad and a pencil and literally put it in front of them and said, you might want to write this down. Oh, okay. Just as a way of kind of providing some training to say, don't come ask me for advice and just sit there and nod. Either you've got a photographic memory or it tells me that you're setting my counsel at naught. And here, I'm not being paid to give you career and life advice, right? I'm being paid to teach you some things. You're coming in, not something related to the class, and just asking them for my advice. Bring something to write with. The reason I like this is because if they say, what questions have you got for us? And that kind of goes over into my interview skills seminar a little bit, but I like the fact that you might have something, maybe an extra application or resume or something there with you. And then you've got your questions here. You might say, yeah, I actually do have a couple of questions. And then you've got a couple of really good questions. Not basic questions, right? What is the name of this school again? That is not. Teasing. I know you would not do something that stupid, right? But, you know, you want to show that, look, you kind of want to look like, I'm here to work, man. I'm a serious person. I've got my notes with me. I've got something to write on. Don't patronize them either. If Rita's interviewing me and she's sharing some thoughts with me and I'm scribbling and writing, oh, this is so great. You're so wonderful. This is so helpful. But seriously, if something hits you and strikes you, you're like, oh, wow, I had not thought of that. You know, make a note. Make a note. Or look at your notes. It's fine to do that. You're not going to press them by saying, I've got 3 questions for you and I've got them memorized. It certainly would be fine for you to say, I do. I think it makes you look a little more prepared, actually. To say, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, I noticed on your website, so with the question, give them the notion that you have done your homework. Don't ask them a basic question that everyone should know, but say, I noticed this was on your website, it said this, but does that mean for all candidates, or was it just this particular category? That was not clear to me. They'd be delighted to answer a question like that for you, right? So maybe a little bit advanced. It shows you've done some homework, you're serious about that school. And by the way, which brings up a thought, no matter, I don't care where the school is in your ranking. This might be 20th in your ranking. Your game that day is, as far as you and they are concerned, this school is your top choice. Everything about you, the way that you're looking at people, making eye contact, treating the receptionist, everything about you should say, the way that you're dressing, the way that you're interacting. I'm not saying lie to them about, oh, this school's my first choice. I'm just saying it may be your only choice, right? So make sure that you're communicating that in every way that you can communicate that, right? A few other thoughts here. Women's shoulder bag. Why did Nikki include that? Thoughts on a shoulder bag? No? You don't like it?
Well, like I said, I think if you can do without a purse, do without a purse.
Yeah.
Same thing as a messenger bag.
The messenger bag, I said, I just think that looks a little too, like I said, are you a messenger?
Yeah.
Are you delivering things today? Are you making money while you're here today with us?
You shouldn't need to be carrying that much stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, minimize that. Tattoos, I would say, in most work settings, although there's no question that this has changed. You and I are seeing tattoos all over the place. And my guess is in the next several years, thank you for that, by the way, many retailers will probably have done away with the idea that who have a rule, no visible tattoos. That rule will probably be gone in the next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion. And just the way I see that trend kind of going. But for now, have no visible tattoos. My friend Madeline Swanson is our career coach, has a few tattoos. And when she gave this presentation with me the other day, she showed the folks one of her tattoos, but she said, notice that I haven't covered up. And when I interviewed, and I said, yeah, when you interviewed with us, I did not know you had any tattoos. It wasn't until later, and then I want you thrown out of the building. No, I'm teasing. But I said, I did not know you had any tattoos until you actually come to work for us, and then one day you wore a short-sleeved shirt. But those should be covered up whenever possible. The only thing I would say on watches is not something crazy like maybe a massive face on a watch that's really kind of super trendy, or a sports watch, an athletic-looking watch. I would say anything with a leather band. You don't need to spend a lot of money on these. They've got marvelous-looking watches at like a Fossil outlet store. That's a piece of cake. A lot of people ask me about smartwatches, Apple Watches, things of that nature. Were you guys going to ask me about those or no? Yeah, I think that those are fine. However, if that thing starts blowing up on you and that thing is going off and you're doing this, oh my gosh, what idiot is contacting me in the middle of this interview? If you don't know how to control that, then I would wear something different. Other thoughts on watches? Yeah.
I was going to say, you can find a nice Fossil Rock watch at Ross also.
Absolutely. You don't need to even spend $100 on a nice looking watch. Now, would somebody know that if they saw that were a Fossil watch, that were a less expensive watch? I don't think you're trying to impress anybody with your watch. You're not going to some auction at Tiffany's, for heck's sakes. This is just, it's a job interview. You're a young person right out of college that spent a lot of the last 4 years eating ramen, for heck's sakes. They get that. They understand their audience. They know that you're just getting a start in the professional world, essentially, right? So it's okay. Men and facial hair, again, keep it trimmed, I think, if you're going to go with that. Just so you know, physical fitness, weight, and tanning, there's a lot of research to back that up. Basically, the bottom line here is do the best with what the universe has given you on your birthday, and to make yourself look as best as you can on that particular day. But the research, there's a lot of research out there on people that, especially women, unfortunately women, I hate to give you that news, but a women's body mass, as it goes up, her earning power goes down. That tells me something. There's a signal there in the marketplace that says something is going on there that people are not comfortable with. Even just a little bit of tan. If there were a dermatologist here and I said the word healthy tan, they could take the gun out and shoot me. There's apparently no such thing as a healthy tan. And you may all know that being in the healthcare field. But the reality is, with just a little color, people do test better in interview settings when they've got just a little bit of color. That's a reality. Yeah?
I was just going back to the smartwatches and the leather bands that you can get for a smartwatch. Would that be something that you would recommend, or just with like the more sporty look that it's clean black, all one color, or if you have an opinion about
I'd
that?
get rid of the smartwatch. I wouldn't wear your smartwatch, I'd just wear a traditional watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's probably good counsel. And then personal hygiene. Keep in mind that you are going to be a couple things. In an unfamiliar environment, I'm telling you, I know you got in your mind that the Midwest is a lot more humid than Cedar, but when you go back there, that will clobber you when you get off the plane or get out of the car. You'll be like, oh, I forgot about this. That's right, this is near the Great Lakes area, and now it's 80% humidity, and now I'm perspiring. So you want to be, I would say, you want to go with a deodorant, with an antiperspirant in this particular case, right? I usually just wear deodorant every day, never gets too hot in Cedar City. We hike a lot, and when I go on a long hike and I'm going to be around people in a closed car riding home after a long hike, I will usually pull out the white solution, right? The speed stick with the antiperspirant in there, the white chalky stuff, and I will usually give myself a dose of that so people aren't volunteering to walk home from Zion National Park instead of riding my car.
Or the clinical strength type, if you need the clinical strength type, buy it now. The other, personal hygiene, I've noticed more and more people are not taking good care of their dental health. So they may show up with brown teeth or bad breath. And when I've interviewed, I'm kind of like surprised. This is the time to go get your dental health in order, get your dental, keep your teeth clean. Bad breath is not a good thing either.
So, without, like, maybe gum is not appropriate?
Gum's not appropriate, but have mints available beforehand. Remember, you're there all day. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be there all day. I will say this about gum. Am I chewing gum?
No.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and here's what I've done. I'm just comfortable with it, and so I've learned. I just have it tucked in the back of my cheek. I take a third of a stick, or if it's like Trident, it's half a stick. It's a really, really small piece. But I'm kind of self-conscious about my breath. I don't ever want to be breathing bad breath on people. So,
Seriously?
yeah.
I'm surprised.
Every seminar I've ever done for you, I've been chewing a piece of gum.
Oh my goodness.
Because that's what I do. And it keeps my mouth kind of, but she's mainly right. You certainly don't want a full stick of gum in your mouth. And I'm chewing it, right? And that's why you didn't know I had a gum stick, because I never chewed it. But later on, I've just been doing this for so long, doing seminars and things like that, I've learned to just tuck it in the back of my cheek and then speak around, having it in my mouth and not have it be any kind of a distraction. But you wouldn't want that in an interview. So I'm with Rita. If you're not accustomed to doing what I do and having this little piece, tiny piece of gum, the other thing is, boy, gum, I go through a pack of gum in like 6 months, right? Because I'm catering these little pieces of gum off, but the Tic Tac solution, or you know how many types of breath mints there are? There's like 10,000 varieties. So probably have one of those, and especially again, if you went to lunch and then came back and you think, well, I had the breath mint earlier, and I went to lunch, even if I didn't have onions, maybe another breath mint before the next round of interviews is probably smart. Yeah?
I was just going to say, God forbid that, you forgot about it, or it was unconscious or something, and it fell out of your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's happened to me.
Yeah.
But not in a class, but it has happened to me before, where I leaned over and the gum fell out, and it's on the ground, and it's like, okay, now the party's over, and my life is over, and I'm leaving. Right? Yeah, that would be, like I said, God forbid that would happen, and so that would be not good. Any additional thoughts, my friends, on your appearance at this environment?
So would you guys be interested in having Greg Powell come to like a breakfast meeting as we get closer to when you're interviewing? Would that be something that we could do, put together, like as the semester's getting ready to start? That's when a lot of you are going to be doing your interviews. One of the comments we have heard is that we talk about interview skills now, but then you guys aren't even ready for interviews. Now, I know some of you may be interviewing in August, but maybe we'll try to put together another event that he could present at for a couple hours.
I was just curious, like, when are interviews typically like the range of dates?
PAs are going to start in August.
August until, like,
Some med will start in August, but it'll go pretty much through the fall semester.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious, like, how often they do it in, like, November? I'm just thinking of, like, travel costs and stuff.
Yep,
and
a
that's
lot.
where it's travel.
A lot. Yep.
Fine, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Summer, or late summer and into the fall, right? Is
Yes.
usually the zone for
Yep.
these guys, and
Right.
when?
Yep.
When?
Yeah.
that's the other hand back here, I thought I saw it. Go ahead, yeah.
For women, do you prefer maybe up or down?
Kind of depends on you, depends on whether you need to style it, whether you don't need to style it. Does it look professional down, does it not look professional down? We're happy to work with you on an individual basis. Is it bothering you? Are you always doing something with it? Then put it up. You do not want to be distracted by your hair.
Saw a few other hands too, yeah.
If we're told specifically from where we're interviewing that dress is going to be business casual, how would you suggest we change?
You won't be.
I have.
Really?
Reno.
For a school?
Yeah, for Reno. They say first day they wanted business casual, and then second day more formal.
Oh, I see. Okay, so they're maybe putting you to the test somehow, okay.
Yeah, boy, I didn't know.
That's interesting. So what's your question around that issue?
So how should I dress, or like alter, like, would you suggest like a sports coat and a
Yeah.
tie? Okay.
No tie.
No tie.
No,
Sports coat,
no
no tie.
Yeah, I'd say no tie, just buttoned up, but not all the way up, you know, the top button unbuttoned, and probably no tie.
Okay.
Yeah,
For belt buckles, like obviously you don't wear your big rodeo belt buckle, but
Yeah.
like they have like the ratchet kinds.
if you went to the national championship in Las Vegas, and you got one like that, then you wear that buckle. No, I'm loud and proud with the belt buckle. No, yeah, I think the most boring thing you want to have on your body for men is going to be this belt buckle.
Okay, because I have like a solid face one that ratchets, and that's like the only real belt that I have. So yeah, I mean it looks.
The
It's
tip is
so,
just solid.
yeah,
I know
it's
what
so
you're talking
slim,
about.
it's so
It has a
sleek.
clip mechanism if you push it in and it just goes.
I'm not getting a visual on that, but
The mission belt and the name for it.
what's it called?
Mission belt is like a company, but they're really nice looking. I think that they're very, I think that they're.
Find me a picture. I want to be able to address that specifically, but
Oh, okay, let's get you.
yeah, I'm interested to see a picture of that. Any other questions? Any other thoughts?
Sally?